Welcome to Raising the Bar, a podcast giving no bullshit marketing advice for Aussie business owners. Expertise takes experience, and that's why we tell stories from lived experience to deliver marketing that raises the standard of what Aussie business owners should expect.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Raising the Bar. I'm Meep. I'm with my good friend Mel. How are you today, friend?
I'm pretty good, maybe.
Good. So today the topic is websites. Something that not long ago I would have said was a terrifying topic. Now it kind of excites me. I don't know why. I think I know a little bit more about them, but it's something that I talk about with business owners typically in the first conversation I have with them. And I guess most of them know they need a website. But I guess my first question to you is that still the case in 2025 or almost 2026? Or can people get away with just a Google business profile or a social page?
Yeah, I think it's something we've touched on a little bit before, but I think the easiest way to summarise that is that though your Google My Business page is your absolute cornerstone of local search, and socials seems to be something certainly the younger generations are saying, I'm going to build my business on Facebook. You know, we go and visit people like, I've got this many followers, I've got this, that's phenomenal. But if you see those almost as, I guess, the shop windows, but people have got to walk into the store and you've got to own something, and that would be your website. Both for reasons that, you know, I've touched on quite a few times, that you don't own your Google My Business page, you don't own your social media. They can be taken away at any point, whereas a website is something you generally have a local relationship with, you know, the hosting provider, or it's on something like a Shopify or a WordPress hosted environment that you have access to. So that becomes your real foundation. And the second foundational part of that is that it's where all your content lives. You can say whatever you want to say on there. It's not other people's reviews and how other people perceive you. So a really important bedrock of where you keep all your content, where you keep all your video, where you keep all the things you want to say about yourself, and you own it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I had a client the other day who had been in business for, I think, 21 years and didn't have a website. So he's reached out to actually build a website, but all he had was a Google business profile. And I found it amazing because all it took was one or two bad reviews.
And he wanted to build a website?
Yeah, maybe. But it was just fascinating to see he was such a well-established, well-known businessman in that field.
Yeah.
But that tiny little thing on Google Business Profile just made it look
like he was absolutely not credible.
Yeah.
Crazy. So, I mean, we probably should recommend he gets the bad review removed as well. But I think, you know, you want to control your narrative and control your content, and your website is the place to do that.
Yeah. Which is really, you know, I think also, you know, people want to do that. They want to have a great website, but they're then terrified of the cost, you know, because I think I've had people who have paid $2,000. I've had people who have said they've paid $50,000. If someone is building a website, what should they be spending?
Oh, that's a good question, because it is actually a great unknown, and sometimes, you know, we'll go out to see something like, oh, listen, we got this 4 or 5 years ago. You know, it was about $40,000, and you see me nearly vomit in my hands at that kind of expense, depending on the type of client it is. So, yeah, I think it's a really important distinction to make sure, you know, is that completely unfounded? Well, maybe not, depending on the type of business you are. But we would probably put this into a few categories. So what kind of business are you? If you're just a bit of a micro business, you're starting out for the first time, there are tools like a Wix and a Squarespace that if you have more time than money, just get out there and have a crack. They're not that difficult to pop together yourselves, and there's no issues. And if you come to someone like us,
says the marketer.
Yeah, like I think, you know, at the end of the day, you're looking to have a presence and be really logical with your money. Your greatest asset is time. And when you are so busy making your product that or building your business that you don't have time for marketing, that's when you use a marketer. So those things are perfectly fine for micro startup businesses. Don't be afraid of them. If you're starting a little e-com store, you can play around with a Shopify website and start pretty easily. Some confusing parts there, but yeah, time to research those forums and find your way through, get it done. But really that $2,000 mark, it's feasible. They're sort of one-page template sites. We do that if we bundle a little up for clients. Someone comes to us and say, listen, the website's not the core of what I do, but I want to look like I exist and be credible. I'm not really looking to rank, but I just want to have something there that says this. Yep, around that $2,000 mark would make sense. You move through then to like templated but more customized or bigger websites. So you might be looking at, a pretty typical services website, a pretty typical B2B website. You're probably in the order of sort of that $5,000 to maybe even $8,000 mark, depending on the number of pages and images, and remembering all things kind of have to get uploaded and looked at. And I'm not actually talking with website copy necessarily in there. So maybe the $6,000 to build a templated website, 20 to 30 pages, and then think maybe pushing it to 8 with some really good website copy written.
Yeah.
And then when you look at custom design, so what does that even mean? Well, custom design is that it's not a template that comes out and we're adding your logo and your styling and imagery to the website. We're actually, a graphic designer's taking and just stylizing something that then a developer, the code has to be written to make that style come to life. So everything's very manual. And that's when we start to see things push, upward of the $10,000 mark just for an information website. So there's variations there. So when we look at something like $20,000 plus, I think the most expensive website, we've probably ever built was around the $50,000 mark, but it's for an incredibly difficult website with hundreds of thousands of pages, with integrations working everywhere, working into a product system, which is pushing, merchandise and stock levels both ways. So that's when you start to get that level. So if you're just a basic B2B business and you're getting quotes upward of it's probably about $10,000, I think keep shopping would be my advice. And don't be afraid that a great templated $6,000 website, you're going to have it 4 to 5 years. You might have it a little bit longer if it's maintained well. But that's a really good investment. At the end of the day, your website return on investment is something you've really got to think about. And I think that in that price point, I'm pretty happy. I'd say 90% of the websites we build are in that price point. Yeah.
Yeah. I always think it's when I'm going out and talking about a website or selling a website, I imagine the business owner is how I feel when I go to the mechanic and I jump in the car and they give me a call and I'm like, I don't know if they're giving me a good deal and looking after me.
I don't know what a carburetor is.
Or if they're absolutely playing me. But I think it's just there's that. Sometimes it's just hard to know, isn't it? So, but when you have those rough prices,
I think there's this rough. I honestly think in websites, right? The actual people say I want to build a website. A website is the quality of the imagery that you have and the quality of the content you put in it. So the video, the imagery that you have and the content you put into it.
Yeah.
And I think when you actually think that ultimately we're looking at websites on our mobiles and on different desktops and boardroom screens and these things, we need a device responsive website. And a really cost-effective way to do that is a template. Now, if you're trying to sell an entire state's tourism, I understand that those bigger expenses often make sense. There is a little irony to me, perhaps, that most of those websites do end up looking like templated websites in some way sometimes, but I understand the finesse and style that goes around that. And, the reality that those things are really digging deeper into the science of user experience when ultimately if I'm selling mechanical services, my users aren't so concerned with those things. So, you've just got to know what market you're in and I guess your marketer and your web company needs to know what market you're in and be realistic towards what return on investment this site really needs to deliver you.
Yeah. And the other thing I feel like when you're going out and you're talking about a website build, especially if it's a rebuild, they've built a website before, I feel like a lot almost seem like they have PTSD. Like it just...
Website PTSD?
Yeah, website build, previous PTSD from the experience of it. Like it just seems like so many people have such a frustrating experience when they're building a website. Well, why do you think that is?
Yes, the website PTSD, that's a common thing. And I think when we go out to a client and we say, we're going to have to audit the website and see if we can work with it, you can almost see their face like, seriously, everyone just wants to start by just coming and building a website. And I hate that process. So, yeah, it's actually fair. And I really hope that problem gets solved. I think it genuinely stems from the fact that if you Google web developer or you ask for a website, in many, many cases, you're going to get a guy who's literally a tech guy that builds a website or a company that focuses on the digital and the components of building the website, those elements that are tech, right? But as I said before, like what's a website actually made of? It's really your imagery, your hero banners, the imagery you have through it, and exceptional, exquisite messaging that makes you look different. And if someone doesn't consider those things first, they're not going to get what they want. So I think a business owner goes, I know we're firing, things are working really well. I now want to get to a point where our website reflects what we actually do internally. And then they come to a web provider who says, I want to do this. what do you want from this? Like, how would you like this to be? And they're like, hang on, I want something amazing and creative and different, and that's what your role was meant to be, right? So it gets super frustrating. I think ultimately what we would always start with the end in mind and go on and look at what that message is going to look like. So you should be asking questions like, what is this website going to say when you first land on it? What do you want it to exhibit? And see if they have that information. If they don't, something else is probably needed.
Even if they understand the services. That's why I feel like so many people get they can't capture what the business actually does.
Well, that's a marketing role, right?
Yeah.
They're phenomenal at what they do. Marketers are meant to make what you do beautiful, concise, and bottle it up for you. So you look at that and go, oh, far out. That's the company I created. You just said it way better, but this is really cool. And what we rely on as marketers is you deliver that incredibly well. So there's a match. You make me sound good. Well, you deliver what we said. You delivered what you said you were going to. So we're very happy to make you look good because you deliver on your promise and we'll deliver on ours. So I guess like why it's frustrating is you're getting a technical build rather than a marketing project. And a website's a marketing project.
Yeah, and it feels like it's right at the very end of the website projects where it all kind of falls undone for business owners.
Yeah, so listen, you would know, like when we go out to people, usually, often we're going out and they're like, we tried to do it 2 years ago and we never got anywhere. Like,
but they paid 90% of it.
They paid 90% up front and you're like, we never do that.
Why?
There should be milestones along the way. Yeah, that's, number one. I reckon that is because exactly what you said. So great gung-ho meeting, you go in, these digital agencies, they show you you like that one, you like a little bit of this one, that's good. And then they send you essentially like a staging environment or wireframe and say, it's going to look like this. Don't worry about the photos. Don't worry about the messaging. Like you put all that, that'll all be changed later. That's your fucking job as the business owner, and you don't realise that at the time, but you take those things out or you take no care putting them in and your website just looks like the knob competitor down the road. So it stalls at the end. And I really think it's because a business owner opens up that staging link and then they're getting asked, can you write the copy? Can you provide these images? Can you get this done? And I think they're sitting there going, I thought that's what you were going to do. Like I thought this was a website, not a framework that I could have downloaded myself off the internet and put together. So yeah, a website project is a marketer's core, not a website developer's core. So in our company, as you know, it takes 5 people to engineer a phenomenal website, usually about 6 by the time we pass it through to go live, right? So there is a web developer. He's incredible. Kyle's an absolute champion.
Yeah, it's probably why I like websites.
Because it goes through the whole journey.
Well, he's
pretty cool.
I like
because Kyle's
understanding
epic.
how he
done,
doesn't.
Kyle.
Took a while.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
But I just think that's so interesting because I had one week, it was really polarizing. I had one client that I was talking to who had bought just a landing page to be made, and that was a $4,000 project. And then at the end of the week, I had a client who had bought an e-com website, which was also $4,000. And so for the first one, I was like, oh my gosh, what is that company doing?
What was the landing page?
The landing page.
Diamonds?
Yeah. And then for the e-com, I was like, what do you have to do as the business owner here? Like it was terrifying to know, and I think it's just...
Great questions.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best questions a business owner can ask is, what's my involvement and what phase will my involvement be in? So I would actually never recommend that you get a website without the copy being written. Now that doesn't need to be done by the web development company, but you actually should work with someone or have someone internally who's the marketer who's going to produce the copy for the website, because people get stuck there every time.
Yeah, I actually don't think I've scoped a website without a messaging framework.
It's because I would kill you.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's their prerogative, but we put it in because it doesn't, it means when we say we will output a website for you in 6 weeks, we will output a website for you in 6 weeks. If we're sitting there waiting on copy, waiting for stuff to come in, honestly, they sit there forever. So I think pretty much since we founded this business, we've said we'll write the copy for you. And it just means we hit deadlines and a client and a product is ultimately happier.
And it's not a huge difference in cost, I feel like. Doing that messaging and then writing the copy.
$1,000 maybe, yeah.
For the copy, yeah. Like, and it's just, and it takes out all of that back and forth and pushing. Because like business owners, they're the busiest humans on the planet. I remember trying to line up even just copy review with someone's flights when they were going here and they could do it on this flight when they maybe had Wi-Fi and they're just a review copy, let alone, and that was a business owner. You can see they're busy.
Yeah.
So if you can take it away and it's not a huge expense, it's such a game changer.
I think it's a game changer. I thought, though, what I would mention on the reason I just checked a note is that I wanted to just touch on the messaging framework, right? So one of the things that we always would recommend, do you remember when we went out, it was your first ever sales meeting here and we went out as a website and we hopped in the car and you're like, you sold a messaging framework. And I'm like, yep, because they have no idea what they're going to put in. They don't know who they are yet. They don't know their why. And if we go out to that business and build them a website, it will be guessing forever in terms of what information needs to sit where. So what we actually need to define first is, well, what's your brand promise? What's the objective? What do you want people to feel when they land on your site? Now, a messaging framework is a one-page piece of paper. We know that. It's your core, what makes you different. And most importantly, we're assessing the differentiators of that company compared to competitors. So what we want to understand is, cool, you do this, and so do all of your competitors, but what elements, maybe one or two, do you do really differently? And how do we tie that into a brand promise? That when you've finally finished your website and there's that opening page up there, you can go, this is where we sit in the market versus our competitor that sits here. And that's when business owners are just really proud. They're really proud of what you're able to produce, because actually it's what we say and what it looks like, the imagery, the messaging. So I would actually say, and as you hear from me, messaging framework first, unless they come to us and they're completely prepared and we go, whoa, that's awesome, cool, we'll move straight into a website project. But what do you say, 95% of the time we're putting messaging on top, and most of the time
I think it's 100%.
Yeah. I've trained you well.
Yeah. Pass that test.
Yeah.
It is, and I guess as well, like, do it once, do it right in that scenario when you're building a website, because I think as well with all the, like, some people get so caught, especially if it's a specialist and they want to have a website and they want to have all the details of everything they do in such a high level, and it ends up being wordy and they think everyone wants to read it. But really, how many people read the website?
I got bored with you talking about it. So that's probably a good explanation.
Shush. Yeah. But I think as well, just making sure people don't want to read lots. They want to jump on the website, read something relevant, and just kind of move on to the next step of solving their problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, no one loves their business more than a business owner, but no one else cares. The reality is, like, we're super passionate. I mean, I know you guys all have moments when you're, oh God, she'd stop talking. And most of the world probably thinks that. But yeah, listen, no one's more passionate, and you need a marketer to make sure that you add common sense. At the end of the day, we're there to solve the need that your user or the website visitor has come. And most of the time in B2B, that's just a credibility check. Do you exist? Who have you worked with before? There was this stat I used to use as a little puppy. It would have been, 2015, 14, but we had looked at all of the websites that we hosted at the time. It wouldn't have been ridiculous, maybe 50 back in the day, and actually looked at the most read pages in particular industries. Who's who? So who's your crew? Like, who are your people? Most visited, obviously homepage first, but most visited, and case studies. What work have you done? Projects, right? Crazy, and it's not surprising. And they're the things we spend the least time on. We get to people and we go, "Cool, we're organising headshots. Oh, we don't need headshots. We'll get that covered." No, John, you're not getting a picture in front of the toilet door. Not going to happen. Okay. So yeah, I think just understanding the purpose of what you're putting together, understanding the pages that people go to, and just less is way more. My rule is always try and make people have a little laugh and put your personality in it. I think my favourite comment is when someone phones and they're like, "Geez, Mel, I've known you for a long time, but I just read your website and I can't believe it's on a page." And I'm like, awesome, that's really good to hear, right? Because we've nailed that, and that's what we want to do for our clients.
Yeah. Actually, interesting, because this is a bit of a boring topic, but I get asked about it and talk about it. Yeah. So you said hosting. Yeah. And I know we are, people sometimes see us expensive when it comes to hosting.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk me through the boring stuff quickly, just so we touch on it? So like domain, hosting, maintenance of a website, because I think when people do invest and they do the messaging and get a website, how do you get longevity out of it by addressing,
I think the reality is you get what you pay for, and sometimes it doesn't matter, and sometimes it's a bit of an insurance policy, and I completely understand that. So let's address it. Your domain name is just the name that you buy, so you sort of see that as the address. That what sits behind that is an IP address. So what we're trying to say is that 3x2 actually redirect when configured correctly is hitting something like 192.258.64, which is actually a server which our website's sitting on, and in between that we have a DNS. So we're managing the number that points that address to the right letterbox, essentially where all the information lives on the server. So domain name, you can have that registered. My recommendation is always that the domain and the DNS sit with an IT provider, because a domain controls mail, MX records in a DNS, and it also controls your website. Now, just putting it out there, if my website went down tomorrow, not phenomenal, not game changing. My email goes down tomorrow, headless bloody chicken, right? So IT providers are known for that. And then what happens when your website goes live is about to go live. So a company like ours, we work with that IT provider and go, hey guys, we're taking website live, it would never be a Friday. We don't take websites live on a Thursday. We're hoping to be ready for 2:00. Can you be prepared? We need the DNS updated, right? So that's that piece. And my recommendation's always out. I've got a whole nother episode I could do on domains, but we'll leave that. So the hosting component is easiest way to think about it. You've got a bunch of files. It's got all those images we talk about, and it's got these core files through the website and the content that's all perfectly presented in numbers and digits, and Kyle looks at, not you and me. And yeah.
Would not be good if it was me.
And that sits physically on a piece of tin. So for us, we use Amazon Web Services, and that's where ours sit, and it's over in Sydney. And that's a physical box somewhere that your little website files are sitting on. So for us, I would always think, is it hosted in Australia? So if you're using one of those $7 a month providers, all you're getting is you're paying for that piece of tin. You're paying for it to sit on a file. You're kind of paying for like your Microsoft Drive, if that makes sense, or your Google Drive. You're paying for storage, and that's where it's sitting. So that's the hosting component. But I guess the piece that sits on top of that, what we would talk about, is maintenance. So why is ours a bit more? Well, the hosting component is a bit more expensive because it's not some crappy data center that's overloaded in another country and the latency's poor. And also we want to make sure that's an Australian, hosted on Australian for sovereignty. So we want to make sure it's in this country. The second things would be things like backup. So it might be $20 to have it on an Australian server, which doesn't share it with many other websites. So, if you're paying $7, there's probably 400 other websites sitting on the same server. And if one of them gets hit hard, your website will go super slow. So we're balancing the loads and making sure it's pretty consistent. And then the other piece is backups. So, how often is a backup taken of a website? So websites get hacked, not often, certainly not ours, but websites get hacked, right? That's why you have backups. I never stress too much about that stuff. If it happens, you blow it away, you take a backup. But a great story was that a website that got hacked by someone who ended up, it was actually a mate from EO. He's like, it's been hacked. I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, talk me through it. Where's it sitting, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, they will have a backup. Well, let's say I get hacked at 12:00 on a Sunday night and I do daily backups, right? But I just do daily backups and replace my backup. Now, a hack usually happens, and I'd say sometimes, if you're not running security screening, you're not going to notice the hacking sometimes for 5 days. So if you take a backup the next day, then replace that backup the next day, you're basically backing up the hack all the way along. So that's what had happened in his case. And essentially what we were able to do is like, okay, well, we can take that whole set website and we can completely clean it, or go back in a thing called the Wayback Machine, look at what his website's like. We can quickly rebuild it because this is a bad hack, but you've got to get it off because it's giving you domain name blacklisting. Long story, won't go into that. So what are you paying for? Okay, at the end of the day, quality hosting costs more than $7 for a plethora of reasons. The big one and obvious one is backup. You are then, you're looking at sovereignty, you're looking at, for us, the ability to actually fucking phone someone that will answer the phone. Because good luck if you want to go with MoDaddy, one of the biggest providers, that's absolutely fine, but you're never going to speak to a human. You'll sit there if something's wrong or you want to change something and never get the result. And then there's maintenance. So to not get hacked, you'd go, cool. And what does maintenance look like in a company like ours? Well, every single week across 100, 200 websites that we're hosting, there's updates to plugins, updates to core themes, updates happening. And they get assessed for how risky they are, their vulnerability. Kind of like your car example, like, I can hear a tinker. Oh, it's coming because there's a stick underneath. I'll move that later versus, that's the carburetor. Better do something about that. Bloody whippersnipper. Just kidding. So what we want to be able to do is in every week we're looking through those and we're making those updates. And that's a physical person. That is Carl. It's Mia. It's Evie. It's the girls working through and making those updates to get them done. And then the other piece is, if you phone us and you just want to update your Christmas hours, we just make it happen and we don't charge you for it. And so it works. So where do we sit? Yeah, you're probably looking more like, $100 versus $7. But I tell you what, a great guy like Kyle, he needs an actual salary to feed his family, and I'm really proud of that. So yeah, maybe it's a bit of an insurance policy. I respect that. But the level that we want to play in is that your website's going to last a lot longer, because we are making those updates as we go. So in 5 years' time, if you just want to update some messaging, chances are with one of our websites, you're just going to be able to update it. You're not going to go log in. Someone's not going to log in and go, we can't do anything with this. I would say our websites go the distance. I've got clients who have had a website with me in some form or another for about 12 years. I think that's pretty fucking impressive.
I think it's amazing how many websites, not our ones where we do audit them and they're not old, they seem like everything is great. But as soon as one of our guys goes in the back end and realizes how many things are out of date, and it just is actually more money to try and fix it, even though it seems okay, than it is to rebuild it.
Yeah, probably two issues there. So one's around the updates.
Yeah.
One's around those plugins and updates. And so that's around, they've used a plugin that has been superseded or doesn't exist anymore, or the core is outdated, and that core, when we update that, this plugin and this plugin, this plugin aren't going to be work anymore, so we're going to have to find the new plugins, and that's going to happen. And, that core might not be one we work with all the time, like, an Elementor, so we've got to figure that stuff out. There's some great cores. It's not core themes, it's not just one. So that's one issue, is they've kind of just used whatever would work and plugged it in. It's kind of like buying the Ryobi tool set and having a Ryobi battery, but then going, I'll just go and get a Makita, and then I'll go and get whatever the red one is as well. And you're like, well, no, actually, these things don't all go together. Think about it, build a tech stack and environment that's all going to work together and supersede with one another, so we can recreate it and do that together. And that's what you're paying for in those monthly updates. If one of those things gets superseded, it's on us. It's us to go and fix it and make sure your website still works, right? Sometimes that can take 6-7 hours in a month. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it really surprises me how many hours it takes to maintain a website.
Yeah, I mean,
in a year.
maintain it well. Yeah,
Maintain it well.
There was a second reason for them when we audit sites, and that's that people custom code them.
Yeah.
So you work with a one-man band or with quite a luxury web development house, and they choose to custom code, so actually write the code and do custom code. And ultimately, it's like buying a European car. There's not as many people that can fix them. The parts cost more. You've got to find, and you're kind of interpreting someone else's language. No developer works the same. So in these very big dev houses, these guys, they're writing their code and they're storing it, and everyone's on the same page. So they insist. Probably not.
Yeah.
The reality is you kind of want something that, it's a reliable, like a Microsoft Word, where the buttons are going to be. And
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, unless you're you. But other than that, yeah. So that's sort of where you're looking. You're looking to standardise things, and that's why we can really reduce and bring that price down. When you're up in that $30,000, $40,000, chances are someone's writing code. And personally, and the philosophy, I guess, of our business doesn't make a lot of business sense in terms of return on investment for small to medium enterprises, especially.
Yeah. So for a business owner in that small to medium space, and they're going to start from scratch building a website. I know you've kind of touched on it, but just put it simply, what do they need to do?
Ask that question again. I'll just get my actual soundbite. Yeah, okay.
So for those business owners that are going to start a website build from scratch, you've kind of touched on it before, but just put it simply straightforward, what do you need to do before you kick into the build of the website? What's your recommendations?
Actually have a think about what it is you want your website to say and what it's going to achieve rather than the tech. So don't go looking for a web provider, actually go looking, well, what's the purpose? Why am I redoing this website? And understanding that. I think at a really high level, great questions to ask would be, how much am I involved? What's included in this? What are my payment milestones? So probably what breaks my heart more than anything after sort of 10, 15 years in this industry is going to see someone who doesn't have a product, but they've paid 90% of the bill.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
The first time I saw that, I was shocked.
So, someone...
But it looked like they had done 90% of the work by the way it was all scheduled out, but it was so far.
They hadn't done anything. Yeah.
Yes,
so very, but you basically, I would be pushing to say, listen, until I can see that this is so close to going live. So, milestones, we request a percentage up front just to get things started and book people in and make sure that, someone's committed to the project. But it's not, in the 90%, it's definite milestones along the way. And what are the deliverables in that milestone? So great question to ask. And ultimately, for me, is just the little inclusions that you are going to get, I think, will matter in the sense of, is this actually going to go live? Is there search engine optimization on it? So is someone submitting it to the Google console? Things like that would matter as well. But high level, why are you building it? Don't think tech first. A website is not the tech, it's the images and that messaging, and really get that clear. How involved do you need to be and how much am I paying for which phase? If you ask those questions, I think you're going to be in a much better position.
Yeah, I like that. So it's not a tech project, it's a marketing project.
Absolutely not. It's beautiful things like messaging and look and feel and brand and imagery. The tech behind it, who cares?
Don't tell Carl that.
Don't tell. Oh, it's very important, Carl. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that'll do it.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Time for another drink.
Yeah.
Optimization on it. So is someone submitting it to the Google console? Things like that would matter as well. But high level, why are you building it? Don't think tech first. A website is not the tech, it's the images and that messaging, and really get that clear. How involved do you need to be, and how much am I paying for which phase? If you ask those questions, I think you're going to be in a much better position.
Yeah, I like that. So it's not a tech project, it's a marketing project.
Absolutely not. It's beautiful things like messaging and look and feel and brand and imagery. The tech behind it, who cares?
Don't tell Carl that.
Don't tell. Oh, it's very important, Carl. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that'll do it.
Awesome.
Thanks for your
Time
time.
for another drink.
Yeah.